Heyo, Liege Games. I love talking about board games. I love talking about crowdfunding. I'm your crowdfunding guru for everything that you need to know on a weekly basis that's on crowdfunding, everything in between. Not just covering the big ones, not just covering the best ones, covering as many as I can to give you the most information, because we always like those dark horses, those surprises that come out of nowhere. And this week is no different. A little bit of everything, a little bit of humor here at the beginning as well. Something that's really caught my eye, caught my funny. And maybe you also caught it if you watched my video from last weekend covering this week's upcoming games. Spoilers. We're going to talk about it right at the beginning. Let's do this. You know the drill. Okay, first up, we're going straight to it. Tainted Grail, it's raising the most money. It's going to be well over $2 million by the time you guys see this video. It's Tainted Grail 2.0. Now, it's not really Tainted Grail 2.0 because they're actually doing Tainted Grail 2.0. They said that they just got back to Tainted Grail this year, despite all of the concerns and the criticisms, and that they're upgrading it, but you won't even have it until at least next year if you want to get the upgrade kit. But in the meantime, you can also order the 3.0 version of Tainted Grail. That's Tainted Grail Kings of Ruin. It's a better version of Tainted Grail, right? We have some great quotes here. This graphic looks really familiar, though. I'm kind of blanking on why. Well, at least it kind of looks familiar, although the image actually looks a little bit same, but there were some quotes there from last week, right? This past weekend, right? It's a billion times better. A billion times better. There you go. Some of the best writing in any game, book, or video game. Does that mean someone from Game Founder Awakened Realms actually watches my videos? I would be shocked by that in the first place, but all of a sudden, and that was literally like 3 to 4 days before the page launched. So they really good, I guess, because not throwing, again, like I said in the video, not throwing shade at anyone, but I mean, come on, guys, like those are just, yeah, this makes more sense. Anyway, you're going to get everything to see on this page. Awakened Realms always gives the best value from a core pledge standpoint. You're going to get it before retail. They're not widely available at retail often for quite some time. And you can get a little bit of everything here. Like I mentioned, a reprint with the upgrade, an upgrade alone, or the new stuff. So what do you need to know, though? They're unlocking things. They're doing unlocks on a daily basis. They're also saying that they're throwing in a few monetary stretch goals as well. Take that for what you will. Monetary stretch goals always being, what it is. Like I mentioned, the core pledge here, $99. And I always give Awakened Realms kudos, and any publisher that does this, where they say, you know what? We're going to separate a vast majority of the miniatures out of this to reduce the price point. And I love that. I wish more campaigns did it. I wish more campaigns did standees, but Awakened Realms has, as someone who just reviewed Etherfields, those were some fantastic miniatures. And these are going to be fantastic as well. But this $99 pledge with the stretch goal box is just going to be your best value, period. Are you going to, I'm looking at my stretch goal box, but also my expansions from the first Tainted Grail. Are you going to get that played? That's me right there in the comments. Not any of you, but that's me personally. It's actually cheaper than the original. Now, the original price increases that are going to go along with that if you're making it better. Do you sun drop it? I got Etherfield sun dropped. I don't actually remember if I got, Fall of Avalon as sun dropped, but I sort of have mixed feelings about it. It looks really cool, but for an extra $50 or $60, I'm just not sure it's always worth it, even as someone who doesn't paint. And they say all of these are going to be upgraded too from the expansion. So if you buy them, there's no issue of if they're going to be actually the new version. They are from that aspect. Deluxifications, as with a lot of these, some of the little expansions that you're going to get with the Kings of Ruin, as well as Falls of Avalon, the Monsters of Avalon, which is the miniatures from the first time around. Again, some of the non-essential gameplay stuff, the update packs, everything you need to know. it just basically says we've taken a lot of the suggestions, we've taken a lot of the issues with the monotonization of the certain actions or gathering resources or back and forth, and we've streamlined it not only in the old one, but we've also done it in the new one. And there are just some cool looking miniatures here. Now, some of them remind me very much of a combination of several other games that I've talked about in the channel, Kingdom Death Monster, as well as this little guy, Egg Knight's game. And, you know, they look like a combination, an amalgam of some of those, not necessarily with these guys, but with some of the creatures in the creature miniature expansion pack. You can see the influences that have been thrown out there and the incorporations of them. And like I said, they make some beautiful, beautiful miniatures. Tons of creatures here, the decks that you're going to be going through, the traveling, the locations, the resource management, the puzzle nature, the tile laying, the save sheets that you will be recording all of this on, and everything that you're going to need here. Now, they run through some differences. We start getting to the daily unlocks, we start getting to the videos, and as someone who loves the idea of a narrative campaign, how good do you have your narrative have to be, right? Because, you know, if you're going to compare it to other narrative games out there, again, some people really enjoy the narrative. Me, I'm finding that it's really the mechanics that are going to make it or break it, because we have seen now narrative games become a dime a dozen. Like, literally, I'm talking about narrative games on almost a freaking weekly basis now. So it's not the narrative necessarily that's going to stand out, especially if you've got, you know, a page of narrative, right? I play it for the mechanics that go along with the narrative. And is your mechanical base going to be better than someone else's? Because the narrative, I could plus or minus a bit, right? That's really the question. It's a game that people have really loved. Say what you will. You don't rise this high on Board Game Geek if you don't put out a product that is overall very well received. Just the question is, not price point. Like I said, this is going to be cheaper during the campaign. Awakened Realms has been very transparent about that. They have been very clear about that. There has been no issue of that in the past. I have never wondered if I'm going to pay more on either, you know, retail or crowdfunding. It's always very clear from that standpoint. It's just, do you need another epic, sprawling campaign, narrative style, 3,700 hour game, right? How many of those can you have? How are you going to choose to split your money in these situations? I don't know. And the real question is, if this is so much improved, the second version, you know, the couple of those videos up there, they made clear reference on the title or even on the thumbnail to say that this is addressing all of the issues that 1.0 Fall of Avalon had, and it's correcting all of them, and it's better than it in every single way. Why would I buy the first one then if I'm somebody who doesn't have the first one? Right? Right? Am I missing something here? Do you need that much of it? And I say that as if I was someone looking at it anew at this point, not someone who has it sitting on my shelf already, but someone who really liked the core product, didn't get it, wasn't able to get it the first time around, because, you know, Vassal's Law, right? If it's good, it's going to come back again, and crowdfunding has proven that that is the case. Now, it may be years in between, but here we go, right? And still probably for less than you would try and pick up on a secondary market from someone selling the game if you wanted to get it currently. The update pack is cheap. I mean, it's cheap, but it also, they made it very clear in the latest update that it's not going to be available anytime soon this year. So it's not going to be available by the end of the campaign. It's not going to be, as they say here, some of the PDFs that they're just going to be able to send you. There's going to be cards, there's going to be PDFs, there's going to be all of this stuff that they are still working through in the balancing. So I wouldn't be surprised if you might not get that for a year. And does that matter to you, really? I'm asking that facetiously, but also seriously. Does it really matter to you? Do you have enough games that you can play before you get the upgrade kit? Because I do. So again, shipping is going to be whatever. Shipping is fine. Again, my premise on any of these is if you're too worried about shipping, you should just wait. Get a retailer pledge. That's the way I would go. Support your friendly local game store and get it, or entice them with a couple of your friends, right? Because everybody and their friend needs the same campaign game. I don't have any friends that buy campaign games, so I end up buying them. Anyway, but this is Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin. It's just going to grow more expansive. The unlocks are going to make it more of a value, like I mentioned. They're going to have probably 2 or 3 expansions, some gameplay, I'm assuming, maybe a little bit of non-gameplay before the end here. It's going to raise probably $4 or $5 million. I may do a dedicated video about it at some point in the future, talking about it. But, you know, I've also sort of, if you've noticed the channel, I have gotten away from those because I think they're also beaten to death at times. You know, should you back this video? Should you back this game? Should you not back this game? I mean, the purpose of me doing this video right here often is to give you some insight, not necessarily specifics. If you have specifics, I'm happy to do them, but I just never know, again, like, how big of a campaign does it need to be for me to do one of these videos? I don't know. It seems like only the big high 6 or even 7-figure campaigns that people would even be interested in. So tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you really want one, if you want to deep dive into this or not. But there you go. Next up, the other big one. And I was right somehow. I somehow had this on my radar, and it only had like 300 or 400 people following it. And it was interesting. After my video, I feel like other people must have realized it too, because all of a sudden the numbers went up by a couple hundred. But this is Terraforming Mars, the dice game. Do you need, speaking of things that you don't need, do you need another version of Terraforming Mars? Now, this is with dice. This is significantly different. And I think a lot of the core overlap that potentially liked the other two may not be as interested in this one. And let me be very clear about why that is right from the get-go. I mean, it's dice, right? So the whole purpose and the whole premise of the 2 iterations of this game previously are that they are Euro-style games where you are having significant, not complete, significant control over your own destiny and your own strategy. And taking dice into this manner and rolling dice to get various resources that then have to adapt potentially less optimally than someone else who rolls better than you, that's out of your control, is that really appealing to the same core crowd? Or is it more just appealing to the Terraforming Mars crowd in general? And to be completely transparent with you guys, I'm not logged in here, but I'm backing this right now because as someone who likes Ares Expedition, this looks like, as weird as this is to say, a more expedient version of Ares Expedition. Solo mode, you're getting an expansion, you're getting the promos. It's going to cost you $50 with shipping if you're in North America. Each of these 5 dice has different levels of rarity for resources. So there's like 1 rare and 2 uncommons and 3 commons. And so you roll a certain number of them based on the cards you play, because on your turn, you get a minor and a major action essentially. And so the major actions are like your productions, but the minor actions are ways to mitigate and develop what you're going to be doing elsewise. You have 5 cards in your hand and you're going to be playing them in order to gather these resources, take these actions, and collect the resources in order to do a similar end game as per the previous 2 games. Only you're going to be doing it in different manners because there's less resources, less management, but still that element of slight engine building as well. Like I said, the difference though, and this is probably part of the slight appeal, I guess, from my standpoint, what you're doing at the beginning is you have awards and milestones that you are going to be randomly selecting. And one of the awards essentially is you roll these 3 dice that you see in this little graphic up here in the upper left. When they do this, here just in a second, we'll cycle around right there. You roll 3 of those, and whatever symbol that is, you get endgame victory points if you're the one that has the most of that symbol on your cards. Talk about randomness, right? Again, RPG alignment, chaotic, that's me. And so that's one of your win game conditions. Also one of the other winning victory point conditions is there's going to be random milestones that you're choosing, like 3 of at the beginning of the game, and I forget how many they're going to give you. So the rule book is right there. It still needs a little bit of work. It's not as fine-tuned. There are a few gaps where I was like, well, how do you get your dice, and which dice are you getting, and how exactly are you? So if you really want to know some of the nitty-gritty, you're gonna have to watch some of the video here. Again, it's probably not the best rulebook I've read this week, but it lays it out bare enough that you can get at least semblance of the flow. The aesthetic is similar. The concept is similar. You're drafting corporations. I think you actually get 2 at the beginning now, if I'm remembering correctly. And so like you hand out like 5 per person and you get like 2 of them essentially from that. So yeah, all this other stuff looks familiar. A couple preview videos on here, the daily unlock promo set that you're going to be getting along with the expansion. And when I looked at this page the first time, I didn't realize the little expansion was with it. And then I was kind of on the fence, but with the expansion and the promos for $50, I don't think you're going to probably be able to beat that. Although someone in the comment section, I'm sure, is going to tell me how they just paid $12 to get the Kickstarter version from Ares Expedition from Target when it went on sale this past week. So yes, you will occasionally find the exception, but you also just back games because you want to back them, not because I'm looking to save $2 or $3 here or there. And that's where you have to dice it. Dice it. See what I did there without even trying? Liege, baby. Dice it however you want. You know what? And that's okay. That's okay. How you choose to spend things. As a side note, side ramble here, right? Like I'm looking at this and I'm pledging $50, right? A game on my wish list that's been unavailable in North America all of a sudden today, the day I'm filming this, became available on a North American website, and it was about $60 plus shipping, right? I can't pull the trigger. I'm backing this within like 2 hours of it launching, and I can't pull the trigger on a game that's been on my wish list for about a year. That I could have within a week. Like, isn't that crazy? I was telling my wife that, and she's like, "You're ridiculous." And I'm like, "Yes, honey, I know, in so many more ways than just the board games." Anyway, so that's what you're getting here. So there you go. That is Terraforming Mars dice game. There you go. Check it out. Naturopolis, Button Shy. They're putting out their next campaign. 70 grand. This thing is killing it. Holy crap. I didn't realize it was that high. But this is a standalone Sprawlopolis game. If you're not familiar with Sprawlopolis, all of their games are 18 cards. And all essentially you're doing is playing 1 card at a time, basically doing a route building, pattern matching sort of thing. A combination of a couple of the other games that I've talked about this year, including 9 Minute Kingdoms back here. We'll talk about 9 Minute Kingdoms though, because they just launched a dice game, or that's a roll and write dice game, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video as well, so you can check that out and link there. Anyway, but it's that vibe only with 18 cards. Now the difference, and how it reminds me so much of that, and I dare say it's probably more a streamlined version of 9 Minute Kingdoms, as much as I hate to say that as someone who likes 9 Minute Kingdoms. I like the idea of this because essentially what you're doing is you take 3 of the cards at the beginning, and the 3 cards that you do give you 3 different conditions in which you're trying to compete, but it also gives you the sum total score that you're trying to beat, whether you're playing solo or multiplayer. And all you do is add them up to find out what your goal is for that game, because obviously the higher the point total, the harder it is potentially. And they list out all of them here, and then they run through how to play, and all you're doing is matching up. And you have things like roads though, that if you have more than 1 road, for each road you get like -2 points. And so you want to make sure that your roads are connected, because otherwise that's a way to lose points. But you also have to match the terrain that you're going around as well, and just doing that in combination, adding new things with things like campsites, rivers, reviews of the old stuff, but they're going to be throwing in a bunch of new stuff as well, not only for just this Naturopolis, but also Sprawlopolis, Combopolis. We're going to go with that. Combopolis. Again, another Liegeism. You won't see anyone else screw up on their videos like me. And one of these expansions, I think it's Ultimoopolis, whichever, it's down here in a second. You can use all 3 of the base games from like Sprawlopolis, Naturopolis, and what's the other one? It's the Acropolis. Not Acropolis. I'm screwing this up, but you know what it is, and we'll find it down here essentially. Ultimopolis. I suck at pronouncing. You'd never know that my mother was an English teacher, right? But anyway, what you're getting with this is additional free expansions, the Nessie 1-card disaster, points of interest that allow you to start off with different ones, and then they run you through the pledge levels, because I don't really get the good sense above this, but this is very astutely laid out. Naturopolis, those 3 things I just mentioned, Naturopolis and all of the new stuff with the combos, as well as the road work, and then everything for $55. So I think it said it's been in and out of print, and you can order some of this stuff right now. Agropolis, that's it right there. Not Acropolis. Acropolis is a whole nother tile laying game, but Also a good game, by the way. But you can go to the website and get some of these games right now using the coupon code and get 15% off your order. So if you don't want to wait. Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed. I just got my first Button Shy game like maybe 2 weeks ago, Battle Crest, and I haven't had a chance to play it because I've been swamped with games to play for reviews and videos. But I'm really impressed. It came really quickly. It was well packaged. The shipping is $5 on this. It was a good price. And if the gameplay stands up like these others appear to be very strong, because I previously to probably the beginning of 2022, I was not very familiar with Button Shy at all. And so this is appealing, and I hate to say that it's appealing because I have a couple games like Trailblazers and 9 Minute Kingdoms like this already, and I don't really need another one. But for $12 plus a little bit extra, that's probably my biggest concern. Is if I'm going to go, I want them all, and I don't really want the complexity of them all. So it's going to be an all or nothing. But anyway, there you go, Naturopolis. Check it out as a route building, tiling, card laying game. Next up, we have Leaf. And this is from the publisher who brought you Canopy, if you're familiar with Canopy. I actually covered it as a review maybe like a year ago even. It's been that long. And this difference is that it's still got the nature theme. And this is also by the publisher of March of the Ants. And so they're games all are thematically nature incorporated. With this game, though, what you're doing is, I'm not even reading the description because I know the description. You're taking these leaves, and what you're doing is you're just matching and touching the points of the leaves, and based on what points you touch when you lay your leaf, you get certain actions or bonuses. And you're not only going to be getting bonuses, but you're going to be climbing this tree to get the bonuses as you cross them. And then you're going to be getting bonuses in terms of animal cards that upgrade your engine-ish, if you will, as well as a couple other ways that you're going to be slowly gathering resources, getting points and comboing, including growing mushrooms on those leaves, because that's another set collection-esque that allows you to get more points at the end of the game. The deluxe version and the standard version on Kickstarter, they don't say Kickstarter exclusive, but they say the retail version, just like Canopy, will not have the little extras. They will be sold separately or sold differently from what's going to be included here. So the question of why you would get the standard edition here, well, that's your example or your answer. It's just a question of, is the standard edition minus the promos going to be significantly less if you add in the promo value after the campaign when it becomes available? But otherwise, you're getting deluxeified wooden components. That's really the big one here. And these are very pretty to look at, actually. I'm really impressed. This is really an aesthetically pleasing game. Like I said, placing the leaves, making a grid. Now, in the standard version, you're actually using cards, so it's a little bit more of an overlappy, making sure you don't hit the table, right? But this one, you can actually use the deluxe wooden pieces that are cut out to see how they touch. And again, the mushrooms there, that's what the mushrooms mean on this picture. Draw leaf cards, gain sun tokens are the things that move you up the tree. And they're also, or maybe not they're move the tree, they are the thing that advance the seasons. And so this game plays until you advance the seasons a number of times specifically. And then everyone gets like one more turn until it becomes winter, right? Because the leaves are falling, the leaves are falling, the leaves are falling, frost, snow, and then full-blown winter is what happens, thematically incorporating it into the theme of the game in the first place. So that's super high. There you go. Move up the trunk, mushroom tokens. And a few previews here that you can check out. The rulebook is out there as well. Pledge levels 40 and 65. It is what it is. It's a deluxeified game, right? This is an absolutely beautifully designed, aesthetically pleasing, fully wooden tile game. And again, how do you want to split your deluxeification money? Because that's what you need to ask yourself nowadays. It's not, are you wanting deluxeifications anymore with these games? It's how do you want your deluxeifications? And if this is deluxeified in your version of what you want, go for it. Because if this is anything like Canopy, it's a solid game. May not be for everybody, but it's going to be a very solid game. So give it a look-see. Next up, we have Draft and Write Records from Inside Up Games, from the previously Block and Key, from the more recent Earth. And this is a not really a roll and write. It really is a draft and write. I mean, it's really something different. The name encapsulates everything that you're doing, and it's already funded as a game that you may not be quite as initially interested in, but I think the mechanics deserve a significant look when you're talking about them, because essentially what you're doing is you're trying to create your band through the use of drafting these cards, and you have 5 cards in your hand, and you're going to be drafting over the course of Monday through Friday 4 of these 5 cards, because on Friday you have to rest the band, because otherwise they're too tired. And so what these cards that you're doing are to be drafting, they're either going to be adding actions, adding events, adding harmonies, or even members of the band in the first place. And how you fill up your area, the combinations, the set collections, the pattern building, as you can see on some of this graphic here, is going to give you not only combos, but also multipliers that may allow you to be more adaptable in your strategy of how and which way you build your band. Because as they say, sometimes harmony, the combination, the sum is greater than the individual parts. That's what they're going for with this game in some of the scoring manner when you do the end game scoring in each of these sections. Like I said, here's the drafting, forming the band, the harmonies, the managing, the touring, assets, and the chain reactions, including the goals. And at the end of the game, well, all you do is draft, and you end the game through one of 3 different scoring conditions. As your game evolves, you know, we're used to having these like relatively static scoring conditions, right? Like, I'm going to put out 3 for the whole game, and that's going to be it, right? We did the Terraforming Mars dice, and it had the 3 dice, and it had the 3 cards, and that was about it, right? And so with this one, you're going to be having an ever-changing rotation of objectives. But one of the scoring conditions is one of the end game conditions is going to be first one to complete 6. So it's a little bit more like Century Golem from Plan B Games, if you will, where sometimes the value matters, but sometimes you just want to be the first one to get all 6, because if you can get 6 and the other person only has 4, it doesn't matter if theirs are a little bit larger than yours, because you're going to outscore them because you just have, frankly, more. The other thing is that because this is a little bit of a not roll and write, but roll and write-esque, you have the other endgame condition is if somebody fills up their fails, because there are going to be times where you may not be able to use one of your cards because you're drafting and it's a draft, right? Take one card, pass it around. And so the person giving you cards may not leave you with any good options, or they may leave you with a bad option, like a negative consequence card. I forget what they're called in this game, but it's something that you need to be aware of as well. So yeah. There's a third one too that I'm blanking on, but don't quote me on what that is. Playmats, deluxifications, expansions here. But I mean, even the expansion is $6 on top of a $27 core game. So it's a great price. $20,000 in the first day or first 2 days. That's really, really good. There's enough video out here that you can check it out if you really want to, but it's a draft and write, like I said. The description is relatively straightforward. The rule book is even more straightforward in the sense that everything except for some of those multipliers that I mentioned, the harmonies that you're going to be checking off and sort of set collecting, if you will. That's probably maybe the one thing I would say is if you can find a video that's talking a little bit about that specifically, that's probably going to be the most helpful in understanding it. But otherwise, again, I'm really impressed. I wasn't sure what to go in with this. This is probably a little bit try before I buy, because personally, I have just very peculiar taste when it comes to these types of games about which ones work for me and which ones don't. And to be frank with you guys, I don't really know yet. This is one of the few genre mechanisms that I just don't really have a good sense of if I'm going to like it beforehand or not yet. I just haven't played enough of the different slight varieties of this to know exactly. But check it out, 1 to 6 players. Solid game looking. So there you go. Next up from 25th Century Games, we have Ghost Love Candy 2, the Roll and Fright. My ear is really itching, and that's why you've seen me touch it a couple times if you're paying attention. Anyway, this is just a $3 print and play roll and write, but you have 3 different games in this $3 pledge level, and that's where sort of they give a little bit of variety. And you know, $3 is $3. I'm not going to complain about getting a game that's maybe too light or too heavy if I'm only going to pay $3 for it, right? And that's essentially what you've got going on here. You've got a very light, family, kid-friendly style. You've got a very middleweight, and you've got a slightly heavier weight roll and write. They're all doing things with similar aspects and similar approaches, but with different ways of actually doing them. I mean, this is the kid-friendly one, the family-friendly one right here, where all you're doing is rolling a dice, crossing off a number below the kids and comboing it before you go 13 rounds. So you're picking, choosing, seeing which ones are going to work for you. That's the first one. The second one here is the medium weight one, and this is Haunt the Block, where again you have 1 through 31 numbers, and what you're doing is you're rolling a dice and you're moving according to one of those dies that you choose that many number of spaces and marking that, and you do it over 31 rounds. And that's going to allow you to unlock special abilities, do combos, collect candy, haunt the kids, however you want to do it. Now, the third one here, Tricky Treats, is more combo driven and, as they say, dice manipulation. There's also going to be good things that help you and also things that are not so good that you may have to deal with from a detriment standpoint. But this one is only 16 rounds. And the rule books are out here. You can check out the video. It's very straightforward. I don't really have a whole lot to, say otherwise. Shipping, right? Shipping, it's going to be triple as expensive because you're getting 3 print and plays as opposed to 1. And triple 0 is still 0 if you're doing the math at home. That's all you need to know. It's got $1,200 already, and it's at $3, right? So 400 people in. There you go. This is a trend of things. It's not going to raise gangbusters money on any of these, but it's solid, it's fun, it's laminatable, and it's keepable in a low overhead, easy to play anytime you want to sort of situation with multiple players at the same time. So that's why they're still doing well. Check it out. Next up, Elvenses, the Guilty Party. This is Elvenses with an expansion. This is a card game for 1 to 5 players, 200% funded already at 11 grand, with similarly a very low price point, doing very well. As I talked about in the roundup video of the upcomings from this past weekend, is essentially what you have are these 11 cards that you're going to be playing throughout the game. But each card has a point value as well as a special action. The lower the value of the card, the better its power. But you can only play them in specific parts of the table. And you have to pick up the card that was previously there. So you have to plan this out very strategically. As you go on, you're going to try to find the murderer and the murderer weapon and end up not being the one that's accused. Now you have the original game here as well with the trolley box. And let's see what else we got here. We got T for 2 as well as a solo version. How do you play this game? Essentially, you're going to be playing a card, gathering evidence, casting suspicion upon other players, making rearrangements to these cards in the first place, and then spreading them out and resolving the effects of these cards with various wide-ranging effects. And as you're casting suspicions on people of who you think was said murderer, at the end, when someone plays the Elvenses card, essentially, it ends the game, the police come and they reveal who has actually done it. And so if the person who has the most suspicion is the one who's done it, well, all the other players who are not guilty wins. But if the wrong person has the most suspicion, well, then that person who was the murderer wins as well. Rulebook is there. Again, this is a very straightforward game. Read the rulebook. I don't think you need to watch a video. And I don't really know how widely available this one was. Before I did the video last week, I wasn't even familiar with this game. So this is not one that I see you widely picking up on, but it's something that you maybe should give a consideration to if you're looking for something in that maybe like 4 to 6 player range that's lighter, that's going to be a nice flow, and that's going to have a little bit of a different social dynamic aspect than randomly just accusing other people of things they didn't do. Because some people like that type of game, others don't. And asymmetric powers are just really fun to incorporate in things like this, especially with a little bit of the, regular card game golf where you do that. So there you go. Now we have Rone Invasion, and this is really impressive. I mean, this is almost $29,000 in the first couple of days here, but it's got almost $60,000 goal, so it's just about 50% away done. And what this is this is really a 1 to 2 player deck building dice building game, and it's cooperative as well as competitive, and that's going to be a little bit interesting because with these games, with these modes, are both going to be equal because you're playing against this alien invasion, and basically these guys went over to Mars and then they came back and they're invading and you're trying to fight them off, or you're just trying to fight head to head. That's the other price point issue, right? It's 79 euros for this expandable up to 4 player card dice deck building game. And what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be having this market that you're gonna be buying stuff from, and you're gonna be rolling these dice that are gonna have these little screws, as you can see on there, of the colors, and you're gonna be upgrading your dice and rolling them, and depending on what side you roll, that's the resource you're gonna get. And so you have different ways of mitigating that. Like if you get a resource that you can't use, you can actually just turn in 2 dice that are unused to get any one resource of your kind. And so you kind of have different ways of dealing with it, and then you're going to be using those resources then to buy cards from the market and put them in your deck to be able to play them and attack back and forth. Especially in the cooperative mode is where the now no downtime is, because you're going to be basically just going through all of your actions, and then when you run out of resources, when you run out of cards to play, then the enemy phase goes. And so it's going to be more in that sense when you're doing that, and it's similar in the competitive one, but it's much more so in the cooperative, I believe. You're just choosing from asymmetric leaders. You're going to have technologies, which are more permanent cards that will go out into your field, apart from just being able to attack back and forth. So It basically runs you through exactly what I said here. You're gonna be storing those resources, and you have options to be able to attack back and forth. Everything you need to know right there. I really say check the rulebook out on this one if you have any interest from a deck building-esque with more of this dice feel. It's definitely a different combination of things. It's, high risk, high reward, the way I look at it right now. I really think it's one that you probably need to read the rulebook of, let alone probably even watch some video to get a good sense of whether or not this combination of mechanics is going to work for you, because I could see people really liking it because it's innovative. I could see other people really going, you know what, I'd rather have one or the other. And so for me, I can't really tell. I just don't know. And so I'm not going to try and tell you one way or the other. I think you need to go and look at this one yourself. So there you go, Rone Invasion. And here we go even further, because now we have Mind Your Business, which I talked about on the upcoming video last week. This is essentially a game of gnomes where you are trying not to be eaten by a goblin while building a path that's allowing you to collect the most resources or gems in the mine in the first place. Solo co-op and competitive, and you get a little bit of everything as you're going to be manipulating these tiles, these cards in this 4x4 grid in order to be able to bring the most resources along your minecart back to you. The game pledge levels, it goes right into from the get-go. $22 for one, $38 for two, and then we get to the gnomification, which is getting yourself as art as a gnome in the game. Pledge levels here, getting the print and play prototype, everything else from that standpoint. And then we have a whole bunch of paid videos here you can check out. The rule books there, tabletop simulator, and a few upcoming videos of playthroughs as well. Team leaders, mind your own business, a little bit of social media aspects of things. So there's enough on the page if you want to check it out. The rule book is a little bit of high of a download, so just be aware from that standpoint. But the question just is, how do you feel about tiling, placement and manipulation, resource management, sort of pick up and deliver-esque game? That's what Mind Your Business is. And so if that looks intriguing to you, they are about, 50% funded right now? Yeah, check it out. There you go. Now we have Kitsunedo, Find Your Kindred Spirit. Again, this one, there's not as much information on the page as I would like with this one, because all it really says is it's sort of a coup-esque bluffing game, because you have these spirits that are all going to have asymmetric powers, drawing your cards and sort of causing other people to discard, or bluffing in terms of what you have, but you have black cards as well that are going to allow you to sort of go back and forth depending on how you play, and then depending on how you can start to figure out or deduce what other people have. Lanterns are going to give you more asymmetric abilities, and dealing the cards out, bluffing, calling bluffs. But that's probably about it, though, of what it says. And that's just what I need a little bit more detail of. No rule book, no how to play-ish, just a couple of GIFs. So give me more information, and you can hit your funding goal from that side of things, I think, because, I mean, the art is absolutely fantastic, and Coup is a game that people love to play, and this is very reminiscent of that. So take that for what you will. That's Kitsunedo. Now, Turf War. We're going with the Halloween theme strongly this week. This is very much a multiplayer take that style of games where you are basically building a garage, a home, and your own quote-unquote turf, hence the name. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be drawing these cards and then potentially playing them either to your own area or detrimentally to other people's areas, including things like special conditions that they have to fulfill first, or bribes, that they have to do certain actions in order to get rid of them. A la, a little bit of Lords of Waterdeep with the mission cards for other people. And you're just going to be slowly building up sort of this set collection-esque head-to-head game as you build your own house. And you're going to be having an away and a home situation. Home is where you're basically going to be playing your cards. But in order to get those cards back after you played, you have to flip your sign, essentially, to away. But when you're away, then other people can play cards on your area and have some take that. So it's the yin and yang, the back and forth of how you want to do that. Because only when you are taking that away action as well, I believe, is when you get some of the resources that allow you to play some of your cards, they cost in the first place. And it's definitely an engine builder, because you also have the permanent cards that are going to get laid down in your own house to help you get more resources, to help you allow you to do more actions on your turn in the first place. So that's in a nutshell. Shipping, there you go, comes with an expansion as well. It's going to be what it is. $13 for the expansion and $28 for everything. Yeah, Turf War. Light, small, filler, check it out. Speaking of multiple modes, which I wasn't, but I'll throw it in right here because a couple of these other games have multiple modes as well that I'll be talking about in a minute. Materia Prime, the Inquisition, the expansion for the base game of Materia Prime. And as the designer commented on my Board Game Geek post from last week, this is definitely heavily based off of the thematic incorporation of Heavy Metal Alchemist, if you will. And it's just, homunculi, creating the Philosopher's Stone, all of those sorts of things. And what you're going to be doing in this game, and where I thought originally was just a more of a cooperative game when I was talking about it last week. But this is actually, like I mentioned, cooperative, solo, and competitive. And the expansion actually gives you a little bit more options, as well as up to 6 players, which 6 players is a lot in sort of a set collection, engine building, resource management, pick up and deliver style game with some take that, because you are going to be playing as this wizard, which has a soul. And if your soul leaves, well, you get attacked. Like if you lose a battle, you become more powerful, but you lose certain attributes, because those attributes are going to be helpful in some ways, but the power up is going to be useful in other ways. So even though there is some take that, and you will suffer some damage because you're going to lose the resources that you could have been carrying, you're also going to not just get totally decimated, you're going to fall forward a little bit in that way. But you're going to be basically having these workers, these homunculi, that are going to be going around these areas, these hexes, that are either going to be free spaces, cities, or resource spaces where you're either mining or buying, or if you go to the town, upgrading recipes, or ability to build things as you're trying to build your tower and get closer and upgrade it to being able to build the Philosopher's Stone in the first place. The cooperative also is sort of, I think, scenario based, 3 scenarios that you're going to be basing it on and going through, and they run you through all of the examples of what you're going to be doing on these said actions: transmutating, protecting your tower, exploring, researching. Here are the scenarios that I mentioned in terms of how you're going to be playing it. And you're going to be actually be hunted by the Inquisitors that are, going up and stopping the alchemists from trying to create the Philosopher's Stone in the first place. So reprint, as well as a new expansion here, larger board, like I mentioned, 6 players, a few more things, including towns, more quests, and the cooperative campaign that is with the going up against the Inquisition. That is $47 for the base game, $42 for the Inquisition expansion, and $85 for both of them. A few modules here from the first one as well, so if you want a little bit more modularity that customize your base game without getting the full expansion, you can get that as well. And that's pretty much everything that's out there. I gave a good synopsis of the rulebook. They have some basic differences in the other 2 rulebooks, in the campaign and the cooperative. What's going to be slightly different there, a couple different languages. So that is Materia Prime with the expansion and the reprint. If that is of interest to you, especially if you're a full metal, holy cow, that's how my day has gone, folks. I didn't even realize I said heavy metal. I mean, heavy metal's right, but full metal alchemist influence, I apologize. There you go. Now, one too many rabbits. So this is another very light card game that I think is actually doing well for a reason. It's got 6,000 of its $10,000. The basic concept of this is you draw a certain number of cards, and you have these cards that are going to be numbered in your hand. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be rolling anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 dice, and you get to choose how many dice you're rolling, and then you have to use those dice in either sum or individuals to get rid of cards that match those numbers. And if you can do all of that, well, great, because all you're trying to do is get rid of all your cards to win the game. But if you can't use all of the dice, then you have to draw cards, and you're going to have cards that are going to be doing other things, including bluffing, bidding, as well as, carrying on or following somebody else's turn as well, to give you a little bit of back and forth. You have that as your main action of rolling the dice, but if you choose not to roll dice on your turn, you can actually give someone else one of your cards. But if you give someone else one of your cards, you actually have to draw 2 cards. So it's high risk, high reward there, especially if you have a card that you don't think you can get rid of, like one of those really high numbers that you saw there up to 13. And that's where they call it rabbitage. It reminds me of the Star Trek scene, if you know what I'm talking about, right? Where they go, the very climactic scene from Star Trek, where they're getting ready to basically destroy the alien fleet that's been invading, and they're like, we need some music, we need to really get in the mood for this, and they start playing Beastie Boys Sabotage, and they're like, oh, classical, good choice. Anyway, yeah, there's solo play with this as well. It's going to cost you $19, and if you want to get the upgraded edition, it's going to cost you $35, which has some translucent dice and mirror hologram cards. So that's it. That's all you need to know. Take it for what it is. It's a nice light card game, and with a little bit of take that, but a little bit of bluffing, bidding. I didn't mention the bluffing, but or the bidding essentially is what you're doing is you're basically, when someone plays one of those cards, whenever it's drawn, you get to choose a number, and that's going to be rolled in the dice, and if you pick correctly, you can discard extra cards. So there you go. Anyway, one too many rabbits. Blech. One too many rabbits. There you go. Next up, we have more of a lighter Euro game. This is Black Dragon's Guild. Fantasy world, you're trying to become the new guild master. 2 to 5 players, standard edition, deluxe edition. It reminds me very much of a slightly different version of Lords of Waterdeep, because you have these different locations on the board, as well as different quests that you're going to be placing your tokens on every round, and you're going to be drafting a series of 4 heroes at the beginning of said round in order to be able to afford them to go on quests, because you're going to be not only having action spaces that you can put on just to do actions, but you're going to have quest cards, and the action spaces aren't limited, but they're limited only by the sense you can put 1 token on them, but the quest cards you can put multiple tokens on, and whoever puts the most tokens on a quest gets to actually take the quest card into their hand. And if you can then pay the cost of doing the quest cards by having enough heroes that you can pay for out of your coins, you can go and complete the quest ad nauseum, depending on how much resource and how many heroes you have. Rinse and repeat over 4 rounds, and that's the game in a nutshell, right? Like I said, questing, scouting, going to those locations, choosing your actions, and seeing how you do with victory points. That's it. That's Black Dragon's Guild in a nutshell. It really is, though. I read the rule book. You can check out a little video if you'd like. It's definitely on the lighter side, but it's going to be a shorter playtime too. I mean, I really, based on that description, it's really going to be a 45-minute game. Are you looking for something a little bit lighter on the Euro? A little bit, not worker placement, but it's kind of worker placement-ish too. So there you go. Check it out. I'm mentioning this one because this one is actually a repeat, and this is another Japanese game, handmade abstract game, CIFRA. And I remember covering this towards the beginning of my channel. And this is a reprint, a more printing of it, and it's kind of a cool design. I just couldn't pull the trigger because it's pretty expensive for what it is. But essentially what you have here is you have several different modes of playing, and these tiles that you see on the base game, you just randomly set those colored tiles out, and they're 2 separate tile colors. And there's a couple different modes. Either it's like rush to get to the side, rush to get one to a certain side, or rush to get as many as you can to the other side, but the sum total of who gets the most to the other side is actually the winner. And the rules that are different in this game is that you have like essentially a certain number of spaces you can move per turn. But if you're sliding along your own color, it only counts as 1 movement. And so you're incorporating that into capturing other people's pieces, but also how far you can maneuver on a turn-by-turn basis. And because each of these individual tiles, as you see here, these squares can actually be removed and are put in differently every single time you play the game, that's where these combinations of board patterns comes in. And that's kind of cool. You can start it out this way. You can start it out this way. There's a Japanese version. You can see how they actually do the moving rules here. It's all very straightforward on the page. I remembered it almost instantaneously when I actually pulled up the page, because you don't see a lot of abstracts, especially that are this beautiful looking. Dash, here you go. Move more of your own pieces to the other side faster, as I mentioned. King, get your king to the other side, or capture your opponent's king, and some just get more total on the other side in terms of the numbers that are on them individually. So solo puzzles as well if you're a big solo person, and you can customize it any way you want. But I mean, it's $75 essentially to get a copy of it over here in the US. And the Japanese design, I really like that red, but $79. But it has the kanji on the top of it, and so if you're trying to remember what numbers, it's not going to be as easy for English speakers from that sense, which is the whole problem with like a game like shogi, right? Anyway, side tangent there. This is the smaller version of it as well, which is cheaper, and you can always do that if you feel like it, and extra pieces as well. Early bird, which we've all missed out on at this point. But that's CIFRA. I love covering this style of stuff. Maybe one of you will take a look at it and back it. Maybe get them up to maybe 100 backers by the time this ends. So I always like talking about them, especially abstracts. And speaking of that, I just got my copy of Sum 8. That'll be a whole nother video. Okay, now what do we got? We got Lunar Rush. This is a simultaneous, it says, Euro-based resource management game where you are trying to build a base on the moon utilizing 2 separate paths on your turn, one going from the Earth to the moon, one going from the moon to the Earth. And the tricky part on this board that you can see is that each of these paths are going to be different time. Each of them are going to take different amounts of turns or time to get back and forth, but the benefit or the blessing or the curse of those is the longer the time it takes, the more stuff it can carry. It can carry like 2, 5, or 7, or like 1, 5, and 7 or something like that. But there's a little bit different amount of resources that it can carry going from the moon to the earth and the earth to the moon. And so you're going to be bidding, drafting, essentially, a bidding manner to see what route you want on every single turn. So it's not just like, you lay it wherever you want and you get whatever route you want and you have complete control. No, you're going to be actually bidding. And why that matters is you have a certain number of bidding cards and you can only play one bidding card per turn. But if you're more familiar with like Terraforming Mars, the Ares expedition behind me, what you're doing is you play one of those cards and then the next round that card stays down there until you play another card, and then you can pick up the previous round's card and put it back in your hand. Also, why that matters is the higher card is going to get you higher in the initiative order, right? But if you're going higher in the initiative order, you actually lose whatever number is on there in terms of victory points. And as the game goes on towards the later rounds, there's going to be a multiplier. So like at round 4 or something, there's like a 2 or 3 times multiplier. So if you play a 4, for example, as they use in the rule book, and the multiplier is 2, you're going to lose 8 victory points in order to go first. How do you feel about that? That's what you're doing in sort of a resource utilization, technology upgrading, building upgrading, all of that sort of thing as you're trying to establish the best moon base. The market is going to be changing. You're going to be bidding, trying to go back and forth, and it's deluxeified as well. So it's got a little bit of everything for you Euro lovers out there. I mean, it's definitely a different concept, but execution is going to be very tricky in this one. I think they say there is a little bit of modularity in it as well, not only just with the deluxe edition, but with some of the base game too. So a little bit of limited print run exclusivity there with some of the deluxeifications and some social media stretch goals as well. So that is, and a whole bunch of videos as well, Lunar Rush. So if that sounds interesting to you, there you go. Now, we got 2 more games here, if I remember to scroll back up at the top here, and we will talk about 2070. It's a graphic novel game. I don't really know what to say about these things. Van Ryder game is putting them out. This is their 3rd one. They have relatively good success. I mean, 15 grand for a graphic novel, right? My kid loves graphic novels, my oldest one. And so it runs you through how to play through the graphic novel, how to explore, how to find the things that you're going to need to do in order to complete the quests and utilize the resources. I have no idea apart from that, but it's something that I know enough of you have commented on or been interested in the past that I wanted to mention it. And so in case it didn't fly under the radar, because the other thing that I've seen over the past, week or so, as I've been looking at these campaigns, is there's a lot of these small 5-digit campaigns, even 4 or 5-digit campaigns that are flying under the radar. And so, there you go. Last up. And I mentioned 9 Minute Kingdoms previously, and this is 9 Dice Kingdom. It's a print and play, roll and color. You're rolling and you're filling in these colored spots as you would expect, and it's got $1,500 raised, which again doesn't sound very much, but when you've got 370 people and that's $3 only each, just like Too Much Candy, the other one, that's again relatively impressive for probably something that you've never heard of prior to me talking about it right now. If you're even listening to this part of the video, if you are, you can put a 7 in the comments down below. Rolling and coloring, print it, laminate it, even if you want to, and use markers instead. That's what I do with almost all of my roll and writes, and it's just sort of a fill in and match patterns. You're going to be rolling a certain number of dice, 2 + 1 times the number of players, and then you're going to be going around drafting those dice, using them to then fill in spaces, but the ones that aren't used then become sort of a community dice as well. You're going to be picking and choosing where they go, indicated by the dice, and you're going to also use those dice then to figure out what color is going to be the option there, as well as the structure. So you're going to have a combination of dice that are going to tell you all 3 of those things on every single turn. Fill it in, do it 18 times, and then there you go. You've got sort of your slow roll draw King Domino-esque board filled in. Mine probably wouldn't even look this good. This looks like a very fancy version of Cartographers. I have some family that will do like Cartographers, and they want to color it in nicely, and I'm just like, okay, you know what, if I can differentiate the symbols on there, that's good enough for me. That's it though. You're just getting a certain number of elements, key points here, and they have a few different wing conditions here, the variety, the different symbols in the biggest territories, the edicts, and the longest road. So, and the edicts are sort of like with 9 Minute Kingdoms, ones that are unique for that game that you're choosing. That's it. Few expansions here, and these are very similar expansions to the ones with 9 Minute Kingdoms. So there you go. Digital 9 Minute Kingdoms as well. Huh. Either way, small indie, $1,500. Check it out. There you go. That's it. That's the roundup for this week. Bunch of small indie games that need some highlighting. Even though a lot of paid videos this week. I'm just noticing that more. Like I I don't really pay attention to that, you know, as often, but every once in a while it catches my eye. Like, I just had this thought today while I was doing this roundup. Like, we're seeing much more of a dearth of paid videos. And it just crosses my mind every once in a while. Are we going to ever get to a point where, you know, the paid videos are just completely overwhelming the non-paid videos? It crosses my mind every once in a while. And I think it just goes in waves, though. I think it's just one of these things, because it just is what it is. It's an industry thing. So take it for what it is. That's all I got. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned tomorrow. I'm going to do something different tomorrow. I was going to do, you know, the upcoming ones for the week, but I think I'm just going to make this actually instead into the top ones of October, because holy cow, let me tell you right now, there are some absolutely, I thought a couple of the other earlier months like August were going to be like massive months, or even September. October. Let me tell you, especially the 18th. You know, when I go to the microphone, I'm really hyped about stuff when I talk in the low tone. Anyway, but that's why you should tune in, because not only is this going to be a little bit of covering some of the games I covered in the Q4 video from 2 weeks ago, but it's going to have a few others in there that have since been announced and since been popped up and everything along those lines. So there you go. Maybe I'll throw a few campaign updates in there too. I don't know. Depends on what else I got going on in store. Filming is filming, right? So there you go. Stay classy. Thanks for watching. See you around. Woo!